Okay, have you ever been scrolling online
Uh-huh.
and you see an opinion that's just like so out there?
Yeah,
You kind of wonder if you're both living on the same planet.
totally.
We're going deep on that feeling today.
Yeah.
Like, when do you actually engage with that and when do you just,
Let it go.
yeah.
Yeah, I
We're
know.
diving into a blog post that really wrestles with that whole thing.
It's a fascinating one. It's
Yeah.
called Vapatha on Velita Omat Kalinsa,
Oh, wow.
which translates to Freedom is Choosing Your Own Chains.
Okay.
It's finished from December 24th, 2023,
Right.
and the author is a guy named Juka.
Okay, so freedom is choosing your own chains.
Hmm.
That's a pretty loaded title to start off with.
Yeah, is it?
But then it gets even more interesting when you hear about Joka.
Right.
This guy is a retired farmer,
Yeah.
a programmer, an engineer,
Uh-huh.
and a self-described anarchist.
That's quite the combo.
I mean, talk about a diverse background.
Definitely seems like someone who likes to question things.
Yeah,
Challenge the status quo.
absolutely.
And in this post, he's really wrestling with this dilemma that I think a lot of us face online. It's like, how do we deal with beliefs
Yeah.
that we encounter online that just seem wrong?
Right, right.
He actually used to be that guy,
Oh, really?
trying to correct everyone.
Oh, wow.
But ultimately, he realized it was kind of a waste of energy.
So what shifted for him?
Well, that's what's so interesting, right? Because I think we've all gone through this to some degree.
Mm.
Our opinions change over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
What seems like a hard and fast truth one year might feel totally different a few years later.
Right.
Juka actually points to specific examples in the post where his views became more nuanced,
Yeah.
less black and white as he learned more.
Right.
So it makes you think, right?
Yeah.
If we all go through these shifts in our own thinking,
Mhm.
should we really be so quick to judge others for their beliefs, even if we strongly disagree?
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Okay, but then he brings up Dostoevsky's The Grand Inquisitor, which I haven't read in ages.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's pretty dense.
Yeah.
So help us out here.
Okay.
What's the connection?
All right, so it's this story within the brothers Karamazov.
Right.
And it's pretty complex.
Yeah.
But basically it explores this idea that people might actually choose comforting illusions over harsh truths, even if those illusions limit their freedom in some way.
Okay.
So Juke is suggesting that we might be seeing this online too,
I see.
where people cling to certain beliefs
Yeah.
that make them feel secure, even if those beliefs are based on shaky ground.
Interesting.
So it's not always about being right or wrong,
Right.
but about the psychological comfort that certain beliefs can provide.
Right.
So then the question becomes, does anyone really have the right to barge in and try to shatter that?
Even if you think it's for their own good.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what he's grappling with.
Right. And that's such a tough question.
It is.
Like, is it ever truly our place to try to correct someone?
Yeah.
Or are we imposing our own version of reality?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And he doesn't offer a simple answer because there are valid arguments on both sides.
Right, of course. On the one hand,
Yeah.
you want to fight misinformation, especially if it could lead to harmful actions.
Right.
But then who gets to decide what's true for everyone else?
Yeah. It's a slippery slope.
It is. And that's where this whole choosing your own chains thing comes in.
Right.
He's drawing on Rousseau's social contract theory here, which is basically we accept certain limits on our freedom
Yep.
in exchange for the benefits of living in a society.
Exactly.
So even if we really value freedom,
Uh-huh.
we're constantly making choices about which chains to wear.
Yes.
The rules we follow, the groups we belong to, the beliefs we hold.
It's like we're all walking this tightrope
Mhm.
between individual freedom and the constraints of society. And Juka takes it a step further and asks, what if those chains aren't just imposed from outside?
Okay.
What if we choose limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
even if they hold us back in some way?
That's a good point. It makes you think about the ways we might be limiting ourselves without even realizing it.
Absolutely.
But that still doesn't really answer the question of when
Right.
or if ever we should step in and try to break someone else's chains.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And that's where he brings up a really fascinating point about the boundaries between groups.
Okay.
He basically asks, if you're not part of a certain community,
Yeah.
is it really your place to try and change things from the outside?
Right.
Even if you see things you think are harmful.
This is so relatable.
Right.
I mean, think about how often we see this play out online.
All the time.
People wading into discussions where maybe they don't fully get the context,
Yeah.
and then things get really messy.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, it does. And this leads Juka to one final observation about this whole urge to correct people. He says it seems to lessen as we get older. Now, is that wisdom or just plain exhaustion from years of internet debates?
Who knows?
I guess it depends who you ask.
Yeah, maybe a bit of both.
Could be.
Right, right.
A little bit of both.
It makes you think, though,
Yeah.
about whether that urge to set everyone straight is something we just kind of grow out of,
Right.
or if we just learn to channel it differently.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Well, let's bring it back to you, the listener.
Right.
Because that's what this deep dive is all about.
Exactly.
Juka's blog post throws out some really big questions here.
It does.
And I think the most valuable takeaway is how it can make us all examine our own behaviors and beliefs.
I completely agree.
It's so easy to get caught up in judging other people's choices.
Yeah.
But this post really pushes us to turn that lens inward.
I like that, turning the lens inward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get practical here.
Okay.
When do you, the listener, feel that urge to correct someone?
Is it when you see, like, straight up factual errors?
Right.
Or is it when someone's opinion just rubs you the wrong way?
Yeah.
Like, where's your line in the sand?
And thinking about Juka's chains analogy,
Yeah.
what are some of the chains you've chosen in your own life?
Yeah.
Maybe it's fitting in with a certain group, following a specific ideology, or even just holding on to a belief that gives you comfort, even if it's not totally rock solid.
Right.
Are you cool with those choices?
Yeah. Are you at peace with those choices?
Or do some of them feel more restrictive than others?
This is where things get really personal.
It is.
Because it's about questioning the limitations we might be placing on ourselves,
Yeah.
even if we don't realize it.
Totally.
And it ties into that tricky balance Juka brought up. How do we respect individual beliefs while also combating misinformation?
Right. Like, where's the line?
It's like walking a tightrope.
It is.
And I think we've all stumbled a few times.
Oh, absolutely.
We've all been there.
Yeah, for sure.
And this isn't just a personal dilemma. This is playing out on a societal level right now.
Yeah, big time.
Where do we draw the line between protecting free speech
Right.
and preventing the spread of ideas that could cause harm?
It's a huge question.
It is. It's a huge question.
And to be honest, Juka's blog post doesn't offer any easy answers.
No, it really doesn't.
Which I actually think is one of its strengths.
I agree.
It's more about giving us a framework for approaching these questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about critical thinking, being aware of our own biases, and realizing that none of us have a monopoly on the truth.
Oh, that's so important.
It is.
That's the beauty of a deep dive like this.
Yeah.
It's not about someone handing you a solution on a silver platter.
Right.
It's about pushing you to engage with these complex ideas.
Yeah.
And hopefully have more nuanced conversations, even with people you disagree with.
Exactly.
Speaking of nuance,
Okay.
Juka's blog post sparked a question for me that I think is worth chewing on.
Okay, I'm listening.
He talks about how everyone has a right to be wrong. But does that mean that all opinions are equally valid?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is.
It gets to the heart of how we deal with a world where people have such different views.
Right. Exactly.
So if we're saying any opinion is fair game,
Yeah.
does that mean we can't judge whether an opinion is accurate or even ethical?
Yeah, because let's be real here. Some beliefs have real-world consequences.
Right, for sure.
If someone thinks vaccines are dangerous,
Yeah.
even though science overwhelmingly says otherwise, do we just shrug and say, hey, their choice?
Right.
Or is there a point where we have a responsibility to push back?
It's tough, isn't it?
It is.
It goes right back to that tension we were talking about, tolerance versus the responsibility to call out things that could cause harm.
Right, and who decides where that line is?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a question that's been debated for centuries,
It has.
and we're probably not going to have a clear-cut answer anytime soon.
Probably not.
But I think Juka's blog post, even without giving us like a rule book,
Right.
it gives us some really valuable tools for grappling with this stuff.
I think so, too.
It's about being self-aware,
Mm-hmm.
thinking critically, and recognizing that every situation is unique.
For sure.
There's just no one-size-fits-all answer.
Nope.
And honestly, I think that's where Juka's emphasis on humility really hits home.
Absolutely. Right.
Recognizing that you don't have all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
that your own views have probably evolved over time,
Yeah.
and that other people have their own valid reasons for believing what they do.
Right.
That's a powerful starting point for any conversation.
It is.
It's about approaching disagreements with curiosity rather than judgment.
I love that. Curiosity instead of judgment.
Maybe by asking questions and truly listening, we can start to bridge those divides even if we don't totally agree in the end.
Maybe that's how we loosen some of those chains, right? For ourselves and others.
I like that.
It's about creating space for growth and understanding even amidst all the noise and all the different viewpoints.
Well said. Well, folks, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Freedom is Choosing Your Own Chains. I hope you found it as thought-provoking as we have.
Yeah, me too.
It's been a fascinating journey through some pretty tense ideas, but ultimately it all comes back to you, the listener.
That's right.
How do you apply these concepts to your own life and the choices you make every day?
Because that's what makes a deep dive like this so worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's not just about understanding what Duca thinks.
Right.
It's about how his ideas resonate with your experiences and spark your own reflections.
So as you're navigating the online world, or even just everyday conversations where opinions clash, keep that central message in mind.
Absolutely.
Freedom is choosing your own chains.
That's powerful.
We're all making those choices constantly about what we believe, who we align with, where we draw the line.
And maybe the toughest choice of all is figuring out when to speak up and when to step back.
Especially when you see someone embracing beliefs that you just can't get behind.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is. It's that balance between wanting to help and realizing that you can't force your perspective on anyone.
Right? You can't force it.
And honestly, I think that's where Juka's emphasis on humility is so important.
I agree.
Recognizing that you don't have all the answers, that your own views have probably evolved over time.
For sure.
And that other people have their own valid reasons for believing what they do.
Yeah, you got to remember that.
That's such a powerful starting point.
It is.
For any conversation.
Yeah, approach it with curiosity.
Yeah.
Instead of judgment.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Just be curious.
Maybe by asking questions.
Yeah.
And truly listening.
That's it.
We could start to bridge those divides even if we don't totally agree in the end.
I think so.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe that's how we start to loosen some of those chains.
I like that.
Both for ourselves and others.
Creating space for growth and understanding, even amidst all the noise and the conflicting viewpoints out there.
Well said. Well, folks, we reached the end of our deep dive into Freedom is Choosing Your Own Chains.
It's been a good one.
It has been a wild ride.
It has.
And I hope it's left you with more to think about than you had before.
Keep those conversations going.
Yeah.
Challenge your own assumptions and never stop seeking out new perspectives.
Until next time, stay curious, stay open-minded, and keep diving deep